Okay. But we have tet.
Yud.
Yud. Oh, here it is. The little yud is hanging over there. If one leased a field from another for one septenary,
Which is basically 7 years. That's
right,
cycle.
For 700 zuz, the Shemitah year is counted. If he leased it from him for 7 years for 700 zuz, the Shemitah year is not counted. One who is hired for the day collects his wages all night, and one who is hired for the night collects all day. One who is hired for several hours collects all night and all day. One who is hired for a week, a month, a year, or 7 years, if he departs by day, he collects all that day. If he departs by night, he collects all that night and the following day.
Okay, so I just want to interject over here. The mitzvah over here is of paying workers on time. You've got a positive and a negative mitzvah of paying the workers on time. Positive that on the day you must pay him, and lo salin is you're not allowed to leave his schar overnight. But it makes a difference whether he's a night worker or a day worker, because if he's a night worker, then you don't have to pay him during that night. You've got the day to pay him if he's a night worker. Okay.
Whether it be the hire of a man, the hire of a beast, or the hire of utensils, the law on this day you shall give his wages applies as well as the law. The wage of a hired worker shall not stay over with you until morning. When he claimed it, but if he did not claim it, he does not transgress it. If he gave him a draft on a storekeeper or a money changer, he does not transgress it. If a hired worker claims his wages when it is due, he may swear and take it. If its time has passed, he may not swear and take it. There are witnesses that he demanded it of him. He may swear and take it.
Okay, just stop a second. I just want to interject again over here. This is one of these exceptional cases. Normally, when there's a shavua involved in a monetary case, the situation is where you've got a claimant and a defendant, and the defendant is the one who has to take the shavua, and then he doesn't have to pay. In this case over here, however, it's one of the few cases which are enumerated in another Mishna, which I don't recall exactly where right now. But this is one of those cases where it might even be an alias, I can't remember. But it's where the claimant can take an oath, and based on his oath, he's allowed to take the money off the defendant. And the reason being over here is that when you've got an employer who's got lots of employees, the presumption is that he's not paying as much attention to who he's paid and who he hasn't paid, whereas the employee himself knows whether he's been paid or not. So in this case, we say that he says, you haven't paid me, and the guy says, I don't know, I'm not sure if I paid you or not. I thought I had paid you. But then the shua goes on the claimant to say, you have not paid me, and then he can claim it.
As for a resident alien, the law on this day you shall give him his wages applies to him, but the law, the wage of a hired worker shall not stay over with you until morning, does not apply to him.
Right. So he's still got the mitzvahs assay, but he hasn't got the mitzvahs lo taseh. Why? Because the mitzvahs lo taseh is in the same pasuk as or negerachash. It's in the same pasuk as lo tochlu kol nevela asher lager asher b'sharechat titanu b'achala, and then so this is talking about wait, no, beg your pardon, lo tashok es reacha. You may not oppress your neighbor, right? And the reacha is talking about Israel. So what's the difference? You've got an aseh, but you haven't got a lo taseh. You still have to pay him, yes, but the difference is that if there's no lo taseh, then there's you have the difference is if you're in a situation of b'diavad where you've got you don't have enough money to pay him now, and in order to have the money you'd have to sell like everything to do it. So that's not a lo taseh. If it was a lo taseh, you have to give up everything rather than be over on a lo taseh. Although I say that, and I'm suddenly doubting myself that's not actually the case. It's only a lo taseh sheyesh bo kum aseh, like actively, like in order to avoid eating treif. That's a lo taseh sheyesh bo maseh. So that you'd have to give up everything. But now the question is, If the problem is now that you've got it's not there's no masse in leaving over his salary, so it might not actually make that much of a difference here. Interesting. Now I'm actually questioning why there's a difference if there's an assay or a dot assay. Sorry, Chion. I don't know. Not sure what's the difference in this particular case. Okay, but let's move on to new Mishnahs. Okay.
But it's very hard nowadays because the man who comes to do my fish tanks comes once a month to visit. He sends me a bill from his building company.
Right.
You know,
If that's the accepted practice,
Mhm.
accepted practice, then we just saw in the Mishnah that you're not over if he's not toveh, if he doesn't demand it now,
Right.
then that's then you're not over on anything. So if he says pay me by the end of the month, then okay, pay him by the end of the month, and that's fine. If you have, but if you, for example, you have a gardener who comes in and he says, okay, that's 300 shekels for what I've done in your garden, you have to pay him on that day.
Right.
That's he's asking for it. You have to pay him.
I'm very makpid about this. I don't like owing the money when someone comes to do the work. They did the work, you know, and that's fine. And someone says, well, let's divide the payment. It's a lot of money. Divide up in 3, payments. Fine. But the fish man, I can't get him to pay to send him a bill. I'm always calling and texting him and saying, send me the bill so I can pay you. I want to pay you. I don't want to, So, and then he finally sends it to me, but I don't like that. I like to pay, as soon as they come in.
Absolutely. I totally relate to that.
Okay.
Right. Yud Gimel. Malve is chavero. Okay, so somebody lends money to another Jew. Lo yemashkenenu ele bevestin. So now, if he wants to take a security in order to make sure that he gets the money back, he may not force it out of him except with a bastin. Okay. Of course, if they cooperate, that's fine. And he says, "Look, I'll lend it to you with a mashkon," and the guy says, "Okay, fine. Here's your mashkon, security." That's fine. But if the loan is due and he's saying, "Listen, I want security on this. I'm getting worried that you're not going to pay me back." He can't force it out of the borrower unless he goes to Beis Din. Okay. And he may not enter the house of the borrower in order to take the mashkon. Okay, what are we talking about here? Here we're talking about the shliach Beis Din, because we already know that the lender himself certainly cannot force it out of him. So even the shliach Beis Din who comes with the ksav Beis Din and says, "Listen, I've got an order from Beis Din that you have to hand over a mashkon." So the guy says, "Okay." But he says, "Wait outside." He goes inside and comes out and says, "Here's the mashkon." Even the shaliach Beis Din is not allowed to come into the house.
Yes.
Okay. Shenimar b'chutz tamod. You have to wait outside. It's a mitzvah min Torah that you have to respect the privacy of the borrower. Hayu lo shnei kelim. Now, what happens if he's got 2 kelim that are a mashkon? Notel echad umeniach echad. So he takes one and he leaves one. So basically, you can swap them around. So let's say he's got 2 securities. One is a plow and one is a pillow. So he needs the plow during the day. So in the morning, you just come and say, "Okay, here's your plow. Give me your pillow." And they swap them over, and he goes home. And then in the evening, he says, "Okay, give me the plow," and he'll take the pillow back in order to make sure that he's got what he needs when he needs it.
Right.
Just as the security. Okay. The inmates. Now, what happens if the borrower dies? Eino machzir liyorshav. Now he's under no obligation to return these to the yorshim, right? Because this is the security for the debt. It's only to him that you have to return the object. Not
you said the borrower died?
Yes, the borrower died. So now the creditor has a claim on the estate, and and the yorshim don't have any.
I have it. Okay. Right. All right.
Okay. Okay, I'm just looking through the commentary to see if there's anything that I wanted to say over here quickly. Okay, the reason why you come back and take the mashkon is this is Tosfos. Yeah, it's so that the borrower cannot deny that there was a loan. Okay, and also he'll have a bit of a fire under his butt to pay back because he wants to get back his he's embarrassed of the fact that every day somebody has to come and return his mashkon. He wants to get rid of the debt, but when it comes to there's no such requirement for the yorshim. Rabban Shem ben Gamliel Omer af le'atzmo eno machzir ela ad 30 yom. It says Rabban Shem ben Gamliel, it's only for the 30 days of the loan period. Let's say that the loan is for 30 days after. Is it 30 days after? Run based in, yeah, that's the time of based in for him to collect it. So basically, after the loan has become due, he only has to keep returning it for the first 30 days. After that, he's allowed to take the mashkon and sell it to defray his expenses. But he has to do it through based in, so it's a publicly done thing, not that he's just acting independently. Almana, now exception to this is a widow. Benshi ania, benshi ashira. It doesn't matter if she's wealthy or poor. Ein mamashkin osaj. You may not take a pledge from a widow, because just by the virtue of the fact that her husband is dead, she's already in a vulnerable position. Even if she's rich, she's and there's a mitzvah in the Torah. Lo tzachvol beged almana. You're not allowed to take a pledge from a widow. Furthermore, also the mill, which is the millstone, is how he makes his bread. Okay, if he takes the millstone as a pledge, he is also violating mitzvah lo taseh mishum shnei kelim, and he can be chayiv on either side, on two parts of the mill. Shneimar lo yachbol rechaim barechev. So the rechaim is the lower millstone, and the rechev is the upper millstone. Either of them, if he takes as a pledge, he's over. Not just those two kalim. Rather, anything that he needs in order to eat, you may not take as a pledge. This is depriving him of his ability to eat even. Okay. All right. So very good. So you've got a situation where you've got a house with an attic built on top of it, and the attic is a separate resident. Okay, and the two each of them owns their part of the house, but the house collapsed. Shneim cholkim be'etzim be'avanim or be'afar. So if so they have to divide the building materials, because if it's collapsed and we don't know what belongs to whom, then we make an assessment of what proportion of the building material belongs to each one of them. Assuming you want to reuse the nice building stones, then they have to split them. They have to split them according to the proportions of their houses. And you take a look at. You also do make some circumstantial evidence calculations that if some of the stones that broke, so if you can see just based on the way that it fell, which stones belong to which party, then you can make an assessment and give back the right stones to the right people. And if one of them says, "Listen, I recognize the stone; it had this kind of scratch or this kind of protrusion on it. This one's one of mine." You say, "Okay, that's one of yours, but the notlan for all of Slomin cheshbon." But that, of course, comes out of his cheshbon of which proportion of stones. Okay. Base. So once again, you've got two people living in these two houses. Okay, so the upper story collapsed. Okay, but the Baal Bais who rented it to him doesn't want to fix it. For whatever reason, rightly or wrongly, he's not fixing. So this means this is in a situation where the owner is the guy who lives downstairs. Okay, and he rented out the upper story, and now the upper story collapsed. So now the guy upstairs can come and live downstairs because he's entitled to this aliyah. Now, a lot of this is, by the way, going to depend on how they phrase the contract. Because if he said, if he phrases it, aliyah zesh al gabe bayze ani maskir lacha. So this aliyah that's on top of this house is rented to you. So since he said al gabe bayze, he made a connection, and he basically made a lien on the lower story for the upper story, and that's this case over here where if he refuses to fix it, so now the resident of the upper story can come and take and squat in the downstairs apartment until he fixes it. But if he just says aliyah ze ani maskir lach, I'm just looking at the commentary of the case. You're not going to see it in the Mishna there. But he didn't say that, he didn't specifically pin it to the downstairs house. So if the aliyah falls, then he doesn't have to give him another one. And the renter can just say, okay, we'll terminate the lease over here. I'll go and find somewhere else to live. You don't have to pay me anymore. He doesn't have to do any more than that. But so that if he doesn't have the money to fix it, he'll say, okay, we'll terminate the lease over here. Stop paying me and find somewhere else to live. Actually, talking lo is halia. Okay, so that was talking about where he can squat in the downstairs apartment until the Balabayas fixes up the attic. Rabbi Yossi Omer hatachton nosen is a tikra va'elyon is a mazeba. Says the lower resident has to fix up the ceiling, but the upper resident, it's on him to put in the floor. Why is that? Because Rabbi Yossi disagrees with the Tanakh and says that the Balabais doesn't have to fix up the whole thing. All he has to do is fix up the ceiling so that you can, in other words, the beams and
right.
Yeah, that's going to be load bearing. But the floor, which the upper resident is going to be standing on, that's on the upper resident to fix. Okay. Gemara explains that the reason of the machlokes is that according to Rabbi Yossi, the floor is only that's just to smooth out so that it doesn't have bumps all over it. Therefore, the Baal Aliyah has the owner of the attic has to, or at least the tenant of the attic has to fix it. Whereas the Tanakama says it's that the floor is in order to strengthen the roof, and therefore the person downstairs has to fix it. And the halacha is like the Tanakama, not like Rabbi Yossi. Okay, that's new Mishnahs for the day.
Okay. Almost finished with this.
Yeah, scientists.
Oh no, I didn't do the other Chazar. All right. Okay. Zion Tech. What am I saying? Zion? Yeah, Zion Tech. One wolf is not an unavoidable accident. Two wolves is an unavoidable accident. Rabbi Yehuda says, at a time when wolves are sent out, even one wolf is an unavoidable accident. Two dogs is not an unavoidable accident. And Yedua the Babylonian said in the name of Rabbi Meir, from one direction, it is not an unavoidable accident, but from two directions, it is an unavoidable accident. A brigand is an unavoidable accident. A lion, a bear, a leopard, a bardellus, or a snake is an unavoidable accident. When they came of themselves. But if it led them to a place frequented by bands of beasts or brigands, it is not an unavoidable accident. If it died naturally, it is an unavoidable accident. If he afflicted it and it died, it is not an unavoidable accident. If it ascended steep mountaintops and fell, it is an unavoidable accident. If he took up to steep mountaintops and it fell and died, it is not an unavoidable accident. An unpaid showman may stipulate to be exempt from an oath, a borrower to be exempt from paying, and a paid truma and a renter to be exempt from an oath or paying. If one stipulates contrary to biblical law, his stipulation is void. Any stipulation which is preceded by the action, his stipulation is void, and anything that is possible to fulfill at the end, he stipulated concerning it in the beginning, and the stipulation is valid. Okay.
Okay. Kama. Kama. Eskimo.
Okay. Gimel, if one gives craftsmen something to improve and they spoil it, they are obligated to pay. If one gives a carpenter a chest, a box, or a closet to repair and he spoils it, he's obligated to pay. If a builder undertakes to demolish a wall and he breaks the stones or causes damage, he is obligated to pay. If he was demolishing from one side and it fell from another side, he is exempt. But if it was because of the blow, he is liable. If one gives wool to a dyer and the cauldron burns it, he pays him the value of his wool. If he dyes it poorly, then if the improvement exceeds the expense, he pays the expense. If, however, the expense exceeds the improvement, he pays him for the improvement. If he gave it back to him to dye red for him, and he dyes it black, or black and he dyes it red, Reb Meir says he must pay him the value of his wool. Reb Yehuda says if the improvement exceeds the expense, he pays him the expense. If, however, the expense exceeds the improvement, he pays him for the improvement. If one robs another of something worth a pruta and swears to him, he must pursue him even with it, even to Medea. He may give it neither to his son or to his agent, but he may give it to an agent of the court. If he dies, he must return it to his heirs.
Nazir. Bava.
So, okay. Nazir. Okay. Vav Aleph. 3 matters are forbidden to a Nazir: truma, head shaving, and products of the grapevine. All products of the grapevine may be combined with one another, and he is not liable until he eats an olive bulk of grapes, according to the earlier Mishna, until he drinks a revius of wine. Rabbi Akiva says even if he soaks his bread in wine and there is in it enough to add up to an olive bulk, he is liable. He is liable for wine by itself, for grapes by themselves, for grape seeds by themselves, and for the grape skins by themselves. But Elazar ben Azariah says he is not liable until he eats 2 grape seeds and their grape skin, which are carcinium, and which are zagim. The carcinium are the outer part, the zagim are the inner part. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Excuse me. Rabbi Yossi says, in order that you not air it is like the sugbel of an animal. The outer part is called zog, and the inner part inbol. Standard Naziris is for 30 days. If he shaves his head or a man that shaved it, he forfeits 30 days. A Nazir who shaved whether with a scissor or with a razor or by plucking a minute amount is liable. And a Nazir may rub or scratch the head, but he may not comb it. Rabbi Ishmael says he may not rub it with earth since it causes the hair to fall out. Okay, we are on to Skolem. There we go. Skolem Gimel base. With 3 baskets of 3 saw each, they withdrew the truma from the funds in the treasury chamber. On them were written the Hebrew letters Aleph, Beis, Gimel. Rabbi Yishmael says the Greek letters Alpha, Beta, and Gamma were written on them. The one who withdraws the truma may not enter the treasury chamber wearing a hem garment, nor with a shoe or a sandal, nor with tefillin, or an amulet, lest he become poor, and people might say, because of the sin of stealing from the treasury chamber, he has become impoverished. Oh man. Or lest he becomes rich, and people might say he has enriched himself with the truma of the treasury chamber. For a person may please people in the same manner that he must please the omnipresent. For it is said, and you shall be guiltless before Hashem and before Israel. It is also said, and find favor and good understanding in the eyes of God and mankind. Each member of Rabbi Gamliel's household would enter the treasury chamber with his half shekel between his fingers and throw it before the one withdrawing the truma. The one withdrawing this truma would purposely push it into the basket, and the one making the withdrawal did not withdraw the truma until he had acquired, shall I withdraw the truma? And then he replied to him, withdraw, 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 3 times. After he had made the first truma withdrawal, he covered the remaining money. with leather covers, and after the second withdrawal, he recovered the remaining money with leather covers. But after the third withdrawal, he did not cover the remaining money. The money is covered lest he forget and withdraw from an accumulation from which funds had already been withdrawn. He withdrew the first truma on behalf of the inhabitants of Eretz Israel, and the second on behalf of the inhabitants of the cities surrounding it, and on the third on behalf of the inhabitants of Babylon, Media, and the distant countries.
Zabin out of Bav.
If one had one Zav emission by day and one during the following twilight period, for one Zav emission during twilight and one the next day, if it is known that part of the emission is from the first day and part from the next, the status is certain with respect to both and the offering and Tuma. But if it is uncertain whether part of the emission is from the first day and part of it from the second, his status is certain with respect to Truma, but certainly with respect to the offering. If he had a Zav emission on 2 consecutive days during twilight, his status is uncertain both with respect to Tuma and with respect to the offering. If he had one Zav emission during twilight, his status is uncertain and with respect to Tuma. And all can become tummy through the emission of Zav, even converts and even slaves, whether emancipated slaves or unemancipated slaves, a deaf person, a deranged person, a minor, a castrated person, and a naturally sterile person. Regarding a tumtum and an androgen, we assign to them the stringencies of males and the stringencies of females because they become tummy through a discharge of blood like a female and through a white emission like a male, and the tumor status is one of uncertainty. We examine a Zav in 7 ways before he is confirmed tummy as a Zav: for food, for drink, for carrying a load, for jumping, for illness, for sight, and for thought, regardless of whether he thought before he saw or he saw before he thought. Rabbi Yehuda says, even if he saw a pair of domesticated animals, wild animals, or fowl engaged in relations with each other, and even if he saw a woman's colorful garments. Rabbi Akiva says, even if he ate any food, whether it be good or bad, or drank any drinks. They said to Rabbi Akiva, if so, there will never be Zavim from now on. Or Rabbi Akiva said to them, you are not responsible for Zavim. Once he is confirmed of a Zav, we do not examine him. Confirmed Zav's mishap and his doubt and his semen on Tameh, because the matter has legs to stand on. After he had one admission, we examine him. After the second admission, we examine him. But after the third, we did not examine him. The Reb Eliezer says, even after the third admission, we examine him on account of the offering. Okay.
Yeah. The reason why I was saying that do we check him? Is there a chazaka? Because when he starts out as tahor, there's a chazaka that he's tahor, and therefore you check him out to see if this really is a ziva, if he really becomes a zav. But once he's already had two sightings, then the third one, all of the third one is going to do is make him pipe in a korban. That's the only difference between a zavus 2 and a zavus 3, because both times he has to wait the week and he has to go through Mayim Chayim. The only difference is, does he have to bring a korban or not? So that's why the Tanakama is saying that you don't check him for the third one because he's already muksak b'tumah. Where's who was the last Tana? Just said that, I forgot. Sorry. Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says that you still check him because as far as the korban is concerned, he's not muksak in the korban, and therefore you can check him just to see if he really is going to be high in the korban. Okay, Tamura.
Aleph Hey. Mekatas does not become valid. Mekatas does not become valid. Mekatas except with the replacement of the para aduma ashes. A base of pras does not create another base of pras. There is no truma after truma. Tamora cannot make a tamora, and the offspring of an offspring cannot make a tamora. Rabbi Yehuda says the offspring of an offspring can make a tamora, and they said to Rabbi Yehuda, a consecrated offering can make a tamora, but whether neither the offspring of an offering nor the truma of a truma. Bird offerings and milk offerings cannot make a tamora, for the law of tamora was stated only with regard to an animal. The community and partners cannot make a tamora, for it is stated, he shall not substitute it, which teaches that an individual can make a tamora, but neither the community nor the partners can make a tamora. Offerings for the upkeep of the temple cannot make a tamora. Reb Shimon said that was not Maisa Behema included in the general category of offerings that are subject to tamora. And why was it singled out? To draw a comparison to it, Just as a Maisa Behema is the offering of an individual, this excludes communal offerings, but a Maisa Behema is an an altar offering that excludes offerings to the upkeep of the temple. One more.
One more. Yeah.
There are laws that apply to offerings of individuals that do not apply to communal offerings, and there are laws that apply to communal offerings that do not apply to individuals. For the offerings of individuals make a Tamora, but communal offerings do not make a Tamora. The offerings of individuals come as both male and females, but communal offerings come only as male. With regard to offerings of individuals, the owner bears responsibility for offering them, and bears responsibility for offering them. There is Maksan. I'm sorry. But with regard to communal offerings, the owners do not bear responsibility for offering them, nor responsibility for offering their nesachim, but they do bear responsibility for offering their nesachim since the offerings have been brought. There are laws that apply to communal offerings that do not apply to offerings of individuals, and for communal offerings override the strictures of the Sabbath and override the laws of Tumah, whereas offerings of individuals override neither the strictures of Sabbath nor the laws of Tumah. The mayor said, but are not the convitim of the Kohen Gadol and the Yom Kippur both offerings of individuals, that they override the Sabbath and Tumah? Rather, it is because the time for the offerings is fixed.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Shkoyach.
Okay. Great. Have a great day. Enjoy.
Have a lovely day.
All right.
Tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.